Good morning to you all. Today I am presenting the topic on atrial tachyarrhythmias and management, and my moderator is Dr. Suresh sir. Coming to atrial tachyarrhythmias, it includes atrial fibrillation, atrial flutter, multifocal atrial tachycardia, focal atrial tachycardia, AV nodal reentry tachycardia, and AV reentry tachycardia. Coming to atrial fibrillation, definition, it is a supraventricular arrhythmia characterized by uncoordinated chaotic electrical activity and deterioration of proper atrial mechanical function with an irregular ventricular response. Mechanism, it is multifactorial, however, it primarily involves focal electrical triggers that originate predominantly from the pulmonary veins and an anatomic substrate capable of initiation and perpetuation of AF. Classification, there are mainly four types, that is paroxysmal AF, that is more than or equal to 2 episodes lasting for less than or equal to 7 days, often self-terminating within 24 hours. Next is persistent AF, that is lasts for more than 7 days and fails to stop spontaneously. Persistent AF requires medical and or electrical intervention to achieve sinus rhythm. Next is permanent AF, that is continuous AF where cardioversion has failed or has not been attempted, that is usually lasting for more than 1 year. Next is lone AF, that is paroxysmal, persistent or permanent AF in younger patients less than 60 years old with a structurally normal heart. Factors that predispose to AF. The mnemonic for that is pyrates, P for pericarditis, pulmonary disease, pulmonary embolism, and postoperative. Next is ischemia or infection, R for rheumatic heart disease, particularly mitral valve disease. A for alcohol, atrial myxoma. T for thyrotoxicosis, theophylline. E for enlargement, particularly left atrial enlargement. S for systemic hypertension, sick sinus syndrome, sleep apnea, and size, mainly obesity. Pathophysiology. The mechanism underlying AF are diverse, ranging from repetitive firing of ectopic sites to multiple reentrant loops. In most AF patients, these ectopic foci are located within or near pulmonary veins. The mechanism of AF is thought to involve a combination of multiple reentrant wavelets, mostly initiated by focal triggers at or near pulmonary veins. The conduction properties of atria are influenced by underlying structural disease, cardiac autonomic tone, size of atria, and degree of atrial fibrosis. Diagnosis. From the history, common symptoms include palpitations, shortness of breath, fatigue, decreased exertional capacity, and chest discomfort. An embolic event can cause focal neurological symptoms or organ or limb ischemia. Many occurrences are asymptomatic. Past medical history can assess for underlying cardiac disease, and social habits can be helpful to identify the risk factors. Physical examination. Significant findings may be absent if the AF is paroxysmal. If present, there can be an irregular impulse, tachycardia, or absence of a venous A wave. For more severe cases, heart failure signs may be present. It is important to identify possible etiologies such as valvular murmurs or wheezing for underlying pulmonary disease. A goiter may be present indicating hyperthyroidism. Focal neurological deficits may be present demonstrating recent thromboembolism. Diagnostics testing. If appropriate, thyroid function tests and cardiac biomarkers should be checked. ECG. AF can be identified on the ECG or rhythm strip with an irregular ventricular rhythm that is void of P waves. AF can occur with additional arrhythmias including atrial flutter and other atrial tachycardias. Ambulatory cardiac rhythm monitoring is indicated for outpatients in whom AF is suspected. It is helpful to identify the frequency and duration of paroxysmal AF. Coming to imaging, chest radiography can be helpful to identify intrinsic pulmonary pathology and assess cardiac borders. Echocardiography. The transthoracic echocardiogram can evaluate the size of the atria and the ventricle and detect valvular heart disease. Transesophageal echocardiography is much more sensitive for identifying thrombi in the left atrium and is useful to assess if cardioversion can occur without the need for prior anticoagulation. Echocardiographic features associated with the development of AF include left atrial enlargement, left ventricular hypertrophy, and reduced left fractional shortening. Treatment. Patients with new onset AF do not always need admission to hospital. Indications for admission include active ischemia, rapid heart rate, significant ST segment changes, associated medical problems, elderly patients, underlying heart disease with hemodynamic compromise. Three main goals to be considered in the treatment of AF are rate control, rhythm control, and anticoagulation to prevent thromboembolism. Coming to rate control, appropriate rate control allows time for proper ventricular filling in the diastole and generally improves cardiac hemodynamics. Medically, rate control is accomplished by depressing AV nodal conduction with the use of beta blocker, non-hydropyridine calcium channel blocker, or with nodal blocking and vagal tone enhancement using digoxin. Beta blocker. It is a preferred drug for AF with thyrotoxicosis or acute MI. Caution should be used in administering this to the patients with acute decompensated heart failure or with reactive airway disease. Coming to calcium channel blockers, these should also be used cautiously in patients with heart failure or hypertension. Digoxin, preferred in patients with heart failure with reduced ejection fraction. It should be avoided in the setting of acute renal failure or CKD. Amiodarone. It is a class 3 antiarrhythmic that has AV nodal blocking properties along with sympatholytic and calcium channel antagonist properties. It should be considered as a secondary agent used primarily for refractory rate control or in hypotensive patients. It has the potential of converting the patient into sinus rhythm, thus increasing the risk of thromboembolism in those with prolonged AF who are not anticoagulated. Coming to rhythm control, pharmacological cardioversion is less effective than DC cardioversion. There is evidence that pre-treatment with certain antiarrhythmic medications like amiodarone, flecainide, ibutylide, propafenone, and sotalol can enhance the success of cardioversion. The choice of medication varies, but in general, flecainide, sotalol, propafenone, and dronedarone are preferred in patients with no or minimal heart disease. Amiodarone or dofetilide can be used in patients with reduced LV function or heart failure. Despite rhythm control, many patients with AF experience a recurrence. Of those who are successfully cardioverted, only 20% to 30% continue in sinus rhythm for more than 1 year without antiarrhythmic therapy. Risk factors for recurrence include advanced age, heart failure, left atrial enlargement, obesity, hypertension, and rheumatic heart disease. Coming to anticoagulation, there is significant risk of stroke in patients with AF secondary to formation of thrombus in the left atrial appendage. Risk factors for thromboembolic events can be related to AF can be estimated using Chadwick's scoring system. It includes C for congestive heart failure score of 1, H for hypertension score of 1, age more than 75 years score 2, D for diabetes mellitus score of 1, stroke or TIA in the past score of 2, vascular disease or coronary artery disease score of 1, age 65 to 74 years score of 1, sex female score 1, and treatment score 0 no therapy is preferred. Score 1 aspirin 81 to 325 mg daily or oral anticoagulant. Score more than or equal to 2 or anticoagulant is compulsory. Warfarin. Warfarin inhibits vitamin K dependent coagulation factors in the liver, and the anticoagulant effect can be monitored with the INR with the goal INR 2 to 3 in most patients. Warfarin alternatives. Warfarin alternatives do not require frequent blood tests to adjust the dose. Dosing for all warfarin alternatives should be adjusted for renal insufficiency. Coming to dabigatran, it is a direct thrombin inhibitor. 150 mg BD was superior to warfarin for stroke prophylaxis, though it has similar rates of bleeding events. 110 mg BD dose was non-inferior to warfarin with lower rates of bleeding events, and the most common side effect is dyspepsia or gastric ulcers. Coming to apixaban, it is oral factor 10A inhibitor, and it is superior to warfarin for stroke prophylaxis and is associated with lower bleeding events. There is increased risk of stroke if it is stopped. Coming to rivaroxaban, it is an oral factor 10A inhibitor. It was non-inferior to warfarin with similar risk of bleeding events, and there is increased risk of stroke if it is stopped, and therefore coverage with another anticoagulant for at least 1 week is recommended. Surgical management, catheter ablation. Because the triggers for AF are frequently found in or around pulmonary veins, percutaneous pulmonary vein isolation procedures targeting this area have been developed. The advantage of a PVI procedure over Cox-Maze procedure include quick recovery and lower procedural mortality. The gold standard surgical treatment for AF is the Cox-Maze procedure, which aims to eliminate all the macro-reentrant circuits that may develop in the atria. Catheter-based ablation of atrial fibrillation is recommended for symptomatic patients with AF that is refractory to at least one or class 3 antiarrhythmic medication. This is a diagram showing atrial fibrillation, and here we can see that there is absence of P wave and the irregular rhythm we can see. Coming to atrial flutter, this common or typical right atrial flutter is due to a circuit that revolves around the tricuspid valve annulus. The wavefront passes between the inferior vena cava and the tricuspid valve annulus, known as sub-eustachian or cavo-tricuspid isthmus. Therefore, it is also known as cavo-tricuspid isthmus-dependent atrial flutter. It is the second most common atrial arrhythmia. Like atrial fibrillation, commonly associated with patients post cardiac surgery, pulmonary disease, thyrotoxicosis, and atrial enlargement. The atrial rate is typically 240 to 300 beats per minute, but may be slower in presence of atrial disease or antiarrhythmic drugs. It often conducts to the ventricles with 2:1 block, creating a regular tachycardia at 150 beats per minute. Atrial flutter usually presents as a regular rhythm but can be irregularly irregular when associated with variable AV block like 2:1, 4:1 or 3:1. ECG. In typical atrial flutter, sawtooth pattern is best visualized in leads 2-3 AVF with positive deflections in lead 2. Here, this is a diagram we can see that in the leads 2-3 AVF, the typical atrial flutter waves can be seen. Coming to treatment, the initial management of atrial flutter is similar to that for atrial fibrillation. Electrical cardioversion is warranted for hemodynamic instability or severe symptoms. Rate control can be achieved with administration of AV nodal blocking agents. The risk of thromboembolic events is felt to be similar to that of associated with atrial fibrillation. Anticoagulation is warranted for episodes more than 48 hours in duration and chronically for patients at increased risk of thromboembolic stroke based on Chadwa scoring system. For first episode of atrial flutter, conversion to sinus rhythm with no antiarrhythmic drug therapy is reasonable. For recurrent episodes, antiarrhythmic drug therapy with sotalol, dofetilide, disopyramide, and amiodarone may be considered. More than 70% of patients experience recurrences. For recurrent episodes, catheter ablation of cavo-tricuspid isthmus abolishes the arrhythmia in more than 90% of patients. Approximately 50% of the patients presenting with atrial flutter develops atrial fibrillation within the 5 years after the diagnosis. Coming to multifocal atrial tachycardia or MAT. Irregular, and it is a SVT seen generally in hospitalized patients with multiple comorbidities. and it is most often associated with COPD, heart failure, but is also associated with glucose intolerance, hypokalemia, hypomagnesemia, drugs like theophylline, and chronic renal failure. It is characterized by a rhythm with at least three distinct P-wave morphologies, with rates typically between 100 and 150 beats per minute. There are clear isoelectric intervals between P waves and the atrial rate is slower, and the mechanism is likely triggered automaticity from multiple atrial foci. Treatment: the therapy for MAT is directed at treating the underlying cause and correcting any metabolic abnormalities. Electrical cardioversion is ineffective, and verapamil or diltiazem may slow the atrial and ventricular rate. Patients with severe pulmonary disease often do not tolerate beta blocker therapy, and MAT may respond to amiodarone, but long-term therapy is avoided due to its toxicities, particularly pulmonary fibrosis. This is a diagram showing multifocal atrial tachycardia, and here we can see that there is variable morphology of P waves with a heart rate typically between 100 and 150 beats per minute. Next, coming to focal atrial tachycardia. It can be due to abnormal automaticity, triggered automaticity, or a small re-entry circuit confined to the atrium or atrial tissue extending into the pulmonary vein, coronary sinus, or vena cava. Non-sustained atrial tachycardia is often a precursor to more significant arrhythmias such as atrial fibrillation and flutter, and it can occur in the absence of structural heart disease or may be associated with any condition that causes atrial fibrosis like prior catheter ablation. Areas of fibrosis can be a nidus for abnormal automaticity from damaged cells or micro reentry within the zones of slow conduction within and on the border of fibrotic areas. Atrial tachycardia typically presents with 1:1 AV conduction block. It is not dependent on AV nodal conduction, and therefore it will not terminate with AV block, and the atrial rate will not be affected. Focal atrial tachycardia tends to originate in areas of complex atrial anatomy such as crista terminalis, valve annuli, atrial septum, and atrial muscle extending along the cardiac thoracic veins. The location can be estimated by the P-wave morphology. It can be distinguished from sinus tachycardia by the P-wave morphology, which usually differs from the sinus P waves depending on the location of the focus. Atrial tachycardia from left atrium usually have a monophasic P wave positive in lead V1 and negative P waves in 1 and AVL, indicating that movement is away from the left atrial free wall. Atrial tachycardia from left atrial and the atrial septum will frequently have a narrower P wave duration than sinus rhythm, and that originates from superior atrial locations such as superior vena cava or superior pulmonary veins will be positive in leads 2, 3 and AV. And atrial tachycardia from inferior locations such as the ostium of coronary sinus will have negative P waves in leads 2, 3 and AVF as it moves away from the inferior wall. Maneuvers that increase AV block such as carotid sinus massage, Valsalva maneuver, or AV nodal blocking agents are useful to create AV block that will expose the P wave. This is the diagram showing focal atrial tachycardia. Coming to treatment, focal atrial tachycardia due to re-entry, administration of adenosine or vagal maneuvers may transiently increase the AV block without terminating the tachycardia. Cardioversion can be effective in some, but fails because of immediate recurrence, suggesting automaticity as a mechanism. Beta blockers and calcium channel blockers may slow the ventricular rate by increasing the AV block. For patients with recurrent episodes, beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, and antiarrhythmics can be effective. Catheter ablation targeting the atrial tachycardia focus is effective in more than 80% of the patients. It is indicated when the drug fails or insufficient atrial tachycardia causing tachycardia-induced cardiomyopathy. Next is AV nodal reentry tachycardia. It is the most common form of PSVT, manifests in the second to fourth decades of life, more often in women. Mechanism: reentry involving the AV node that are capable of conducting in two directions. Most of the AV-NRT utilizes a slowly conducting pathway that extends from the compact AV node near his bundle inferiorly along the tricuspid valve annulus to the floor of the coronary sinus. The re-entry wavefront propagates up this slowly conducting pathway and exits from the fast pathway at the top of the AV node. Here we can see that it passes through the slow pathway and passes out through the fast pathway, forming a re-entry circuit. This is a ECG showing AV nodal re-entry tachycardia. In typical forms, the conduction time from compact AV node to atrium is similar to that from compact AV node to his bundle and ventricles. Therefore, atrial activation occurs at about the same time as well as the ventricular activation. Therefore, simultaneous atrial and ventricular contraction results in atrial contraction against a closed tricuspid valve, and it produces a Cannon wave. Symptoms and signs like palpitations, angina, pulmonary edema, hypotension, syncope. Elevated venous pressures may also lead to release of ANP, that is atrial natriuretic peptide, that causes post tachycardia diuresis. Simultaneous atrial and ventricular contraction against a closed tricuspid valve produces Cannon A wave that is visible in the jugular venous pulse. It may be perceived as a fluttering sensation in the neck. Treatment: acute treatment is the same as for other forms of PSVT. Reassurance and instruction to perform Valsalva to terminate episodes are sufficient for most of the patients. Administration of a beta blocker, verapamil or diltiazem, has been used to facilitate termination. Catheter ablation of the slow AV nodal pathway is recommended for patients with recurrent or severe episodes or when the drug therapy is ineffective. And catheter ablation is curative in more than 95% of the patients. Next is AV reentry tachycardia. The most common tachycardia caused by an accessory pathway is the PSVT designated orthodromic AV reentry. The circulating reentry wavefront propagates from the atrium anterogrately over the AV node and the His-Purkinje system to the ventricles, and it then re-enters the atria via the retrograde conduction over the accessory pathway. The QRS is narrow or may have typical right or left bundle branch block, but without pre-excitation during tachycardia. Because excitation through AV node and the accessory pathway are necessary, AV block results in tachycardia termination. Most commonly during tachycardia, the RP interval is shorter than the PR interval and can resemble AV nodal reentry tachycardia. Slow AP conduction facilitates reentry, often leading to nearly incessant tachycardia known as permanent junctional reciprocating tachycardia. As a result, tachycardia-induced cardiomyopathy can occur. Pre-excited tachycardia occurs when the ventricles are activated by the antegrade conduction over the axillary pathway. The most common mechanism is antidromic AV reentry, in which the activation propagates from the atrium to the ventricles via the accessory pathway and then conducts retrogradely to the atria via the His-Purkinje system. Pre-excited tachycardia occurs if an accessory pathway allows anterograde conduction, antegrade conduction to the ventricles during atrial tachycardia, atrial fibrillation, atrial flutter. Slowing AV nodal conduction without slowing the accessory pathway conduction can facilitate AP conduction and dangerously accelerate the ventricular rate. This is a diagram which is showing AV reentry tachycardia, and the classical example for wide complex tachycardia is Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. Treatment: acute management of orthodromic AV reentry is the same as for other PSVT. Patients with pre-excitation who have symptoms of arrhythmia are at risk for developing AF and sudden death if they have an accessory pathway that allows antegrade conduction. Electrophysiologic studies recommended to assess whether the pathway can support dangerously rapid heart rate if AF were to occur in these patients. And catheter ablation is warranted for recurrent arrhythmias and when drugs are ineffective. And efficacy is approximately 95% depending on the location of accessory pathway. For patients with low risk accessory pathways causing orthodromic AV reentry, chronic therapy is guided by symptoms and frequency of events. Vagal maneuvers may terminate episodes. Beta blockers, verapamil, diltiazem, flecainide may be helpful to reduce the frequency of events. Thank you.